Hi there. Welcome to today's 30-minute yoga class. Today's focus is on opening up the front of the body. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, just think about the way most of us are in our day-to-day lives. We're sitting at a desk, perhaps hunched over, expanding or rounding that back body and contracting the front of the body. The idea is that with this yoga class, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to see if we can expand our front body and contract our back body. And the idea is that hopefully by spending even just 30 minutes practicing this alternate position, this position that we're not used to, that we start to bring some relief in our lives and some sort of freshness and openness in our body. This is quite an active yoga class. We're going to be moving quite a bit. So keep that in mind. Of course, any of the poses, if you ever feel are too much, you're welcome to just come back down on the mat and rest. So let's go ahead and get started. You want to come for the first pose on the mat. Start with the hands and the knees touching the mat. Hips are above the knees, and shoulders are above our arms, our hands. Toes are untucked. And go ahead and slowly shift your hips back towards your heels, perhaps sitting all the way back. And go ahead and also rest your head, folding the front of your body over your hips, over your thighs. Relax the top of your head on the mat. And just take a couple of breaths here. Here we're arriving on our mat. It's the start of our practice. And just notice how you're feeling. Notice if your breaths are really fast. And notice how your chest and your back expands when you inhale. And how it contracts when you exhale. Slowly begin to push into your hands, lifting the front of your body up. And then shifting your hips forward so that they're on top of the knees again. We're going to come around and sit back. So just twist your shins over to the side, sit back, and come to sit on your mat. We're going to go straight into our boat pose, activate that core for this fast-moving class. So we're coming into a sort of V shape. Lift your feet off of the mat, perhaps keeping this 90 shape in there. Lean back with your torso and bring your arms out front. If this is too much for you, feel free to grab the thighs and really feel how your abdomen here is engaging, holding you up in the shape. Keep taking deep breaths. And exhale, lower your feet on the mat. We're going to come back into a seated twist, extending our left foot forward. The right foot comes on the outside of the left knee. Right hand comes behind our body. I like to tent my fingertips. Just find what feels best for you. And using our right hand to wrap around our knee, perhaps even just holding it, we're going to begin to twist to the right side of the room. Our upper back is pulling towards that right side of the room. We're trying to face, perhaps even with our head all the way behind us. And keep breathing here. Using that leverage on the knee, pull your shoulders away from your ears. Imagine somebody has a string on the top of your head and they're pulling you up towards the ceiling. And exhale, start to face the front, bring your hands next to your hips, unravel that right foot and set it next to your left. Both feet are extended. Let's do the other side. Picking up the left foot this time, placing it on the outside of the right knee. Left hand goes behind our body. This time wrapping the right hand around the left knee and starting to twist open to the left side of the room. Perhaps our gaze comes to face the back behind us. And again, imagine somebody's pulling the top of your head towards the ceiling. Shoulders are pulling away from the ears. Keep breathing here. Can be difficult. Sometimes you forget to breathe in more challenging poses. And go ahead, slowly start to unravel yourself. Face the front of the room. You can bring your feet to face next to each other. We're going to come back onto our hands and our knees this time and see what gets there, whichever way feels comfortable to you. I like to swing my shins back around. Shoulders on top, hands, hips on top of the knees. And here we're going to play with our spine a bit. A lot of the poses, the places that we spend during our day, we are in this sort of rounding of the back. Perhaps it's not this extreme, but the upper back is rounding and we're a bit hunched, closing off the front of the body. And here instead, what we're going to do is fluctuate between this opening of the front of the body and the closing of the front of the body. So with your inhale, bring your shoulders together and down your back. Open up the chest towards the front of the mat, perhaps even staring in front of your mat. And exhale, bring your attention back to the shoulders. Now we're pulling them away from each other, puffing up in between those shoulder blades up towards the sky. Inhale, let's do the same, shoulders together and down the back. And this time start to pay attention to your tailbone and what is happening with this one. We want to be facing towards the point where the ceiling and the wall meet together. And with the exhale, shoulders are pulling apart, back of the body is moving towards the ceiling. And this time, our tailbone is actually facing down, or where the floor is meeting the walls. Just continue here with your natural inhales and exhales to move through the movements. And notice, perhaps one of the two movements feels much more natural, much more free and open, and the other one a bit more restricted. And that's okay. Just take it as a sort of information. So let's wrap up our last inhale and exhale. And once you're done those, come into a natural position with the spine. So after having moved through the extension and flexion of the spine, the natural one should be quite easy to find. It's neither the tailbone going up or down, it's gentle in between. And it's neither the shoulder blades together and down nor apart from each other. It's a natural in between. Core is engaged here, pulling the belly button in towards the spine. Tuck your toes, lift your knees, and start to gently push your hips back on top of your ankles, coming into an inverted V shape, or as many of us know this pose, downward facing dog. We're pushing the mat actively away with our hands, and we're working our heels towards the floor. Notice here if your spine is also getting into that sort of extension or flexion, and try to also find that natural middle for you. Look forward in between your hands and gently walk your feet there. With the next inhale, rise up. Hands come on your shins. The back is flat, parallel with the ground. Exhale, bend over your legs, over your shins. And with the next inhale, rise all the way up. Bring your hands up towards the sky. Perhaps they meet together in a prayer. And exhale, bring them down towards your body. We find ourselves standing here in mountain pose. Shoulders are stacked on top of hips, are stacked on top of ankles. And just notice here as well what is happening with your spine. Are you perhaps the whole day walking around in a sort of extension, pushing your booty out? Or perhaps you're really rounding your booty. Try to find the natural middle here. Same with our upper back. Are we going towards this phase of the shoulder blades stretching away from each other and the back of the body expanding? Or are we the other way around? Neither extreme is something we want to maintain all day. Just try to find where the natural middle would be here. Or at least what feels like the natural middle for today. Inhale, gaze forward, lift your arms up, open up the chest, shoulder blades together and down the back, spine extension. Exhale, bend over your legs, hands come on the shins or on the floor. Inhale, flat back, parallel to the floor, hands on the shins. Exhale, place your hands on the floor and step back to the mat. Shoulders are on top of the hands, and you're in line in one straight line with your whole body. Lower your knees and exhale, lower your whole body to the ground. We're going to come into a Sphinx pose by placing our elbows underneath our shoulders and rising with our upper body. Palms are pressing firmly into the ground. Tops of our feet are also placing firmly into the ground, and so is our tailbone. Really think here again about drawing the shoulder blades together and down, opening the chest towards the front of the room. And simultaneously think about dragging the elbows back towards the body, while also dragging your chest as if you could almost pull it in between your hands. Keep breathing here. And exhale, lower all the way down. Hands come underneath your shoulders, tuck your feet, come to your knees if needed, and come back to downward facing dog, our inverted V shape. Raise your right foot up towards the sky and look forward and step it between your hands. Come here to a high lunge, so the front knee is on top of the right ankle. The front ankle, rise up, back heel is staying up above the toes. You can bend into that knee if needed. And bring your attention to the hips now. Make sure you're not facing one way or the other, but they're facing to the front of the mat as much as possible to your ability. And in this high lunge, what's the spine doing? I think you'll get annoyed with me by the end of this class. We don't want the booty to be sticking out. We want to make sure it's in a fairly neutral position. Bring your hands out to a cactus form, elbows in line with the shoulders. Open your chest forward in front of the room by bringing your shoulders together and down the body. Keep breathing here. And bring your hands back to face your front foot. Bring your right foot next to your left. We're back into our plank position, nice and strong. Lower your knees, lower all the way back to the ground. Let's go back into our Sphinx pose. Elbows underneath the shoulders. Palms pressing firmly into the mat. Shoulder blades together and down the back. Imagine as if you're pulling your front body in between your elbows, in between your arms. Lower back down, hands underneath the shoulders, tuck your feet, push back into downward facing dog. Let's do the other side. Left leg up towards the ceiling, look forward and step it in between your hands, coming into our high lunge. Left knee is stacked on top of the left ankle. We're keeping the right heel up above the toes, strong pose, hips facing the front of the room. What's your tailbone doing? Keep it in neutral position. Arms come up into our cactus. And shoulder blades together and down the back. Open up the front of the body. Lower the arms to the floor. Step the left foot back to meet the right and push back in downward facing dog. Look forward in between your hands and step there with one step or multiple steps. It doesn't matter, so your feet are in between your hands. On your inhale, rise halfway up, hands to your shins, straight upper back. And lower on your exhale, hug your upper body to your lower body. Inhale, rise all the way up. Hands circle up above you, open up the chest. And exhale, back into our mountain pose. Hands next to the body. Everything stacking on top of one another. Let's continue with this great movement that we've already started. Inhale, arms up towards the sky. Open up the chest. Exhale, bend forward over your legs. Inhale, halfway lift. Imagine somebody's pulling the top of your head to the front of the room. Exhale, place your hands on the floor. Step your feet back, come into a strong plank pose. Straight line of the body, pushing the floor actively away. Lower your knees, and on your exhale, lower the rest of your body down to the ground. This time we're going to come into a funky cobra position. So that means tenting your fingers and bringing them out wider than your mat. Elbows up towards the sky. And on your next inhale, you want to rise up. Again, contracting your shoulders together and down the back. And opening up the chest to the front of the room. No need to stare with your eyes excessively forward. Just at the front of the mat should be good enough. We don't want to crank the neck here. And lower back down. Hands underneath the shoulders, tuck the feet. Perhaps come back to your knees first and then into downward facing dog. One of my favorite ways that I like to practice spinal extension and flexion is with movement, not with still poses. So let's go ahead and lower our knees to the ground. We're coming back into this tabletop position. Untuck your toes and come back to sit on your shins. We're going to go into a sort of moving camel pose, and I'm just going to demonstrate here before we get into it. We are moving the spine rounding and coming back up, perhaps touching our right hand to the shins, to the ankle, opening up the chest, then coming back down, circling the arms forward and coming back up the other side. This time the right hand is moving up into a camel. Go ahead and try to find this movement. What you find might help is tucking your toes here and bringing that ankle up closer to you. It requires a little bit less extension of the spine. And what's important here is to really tuck the tailbone. Think about bringing it towards the ground. And here we're pushing the hips forward and opening up the chest. We're coming into an extension of the spine. I love this movement. It feels so yummy to me. Let's wrap up. Let's do one more on each side, wherever you are. Flowing through, bringing the right arm up. Coming back down with the hips, circling the arms to the other side. Left arm up. Come back into neutral. Place your hands on the floor. Tuck your toes if they're not tucked and push back into downward facing dog. Look forward. Step your feet in between your hands. On the inhale, rise up. Halfway lift, straight back. Exhale, lower over your legs. And inhale, come all the way back up. Arms towards the sky. And then finally, next to your body. We'll do one more of these sun salutations, adding on and doing a different type of spinal extension here, which I think should feel even yummier after those camels. Inhale, arms up towards the sky. Exhale, bend over, hands to the floor or the shins. Inhale, halfway up, hands to the shins. Exhale, place your hands on the ground, step your feet back, strong plank pose, push the ground away, hips in line with the shoulders. Lower your knees, untuck the toes, lower your whole front body into the ground. We're coming back into funky cobra. Tense your fingertips wider than the mat. Push the tops of your feet and your tailbone into the mat and rise your upper body up. Shoulder blades together and down the back of the body. And lower to the mat. Pull yourself back into downward facing dog. Raise your right foot up towards the sky. Bend the knee and start to open up that hip, which means bring that knee up towards the sky as much as you are able to. Try here to keep your shoulders in line with your mat, in line with the front of the body, not raising the right shoulder along with the right hip. And slowly you should find yourself adjusting that left foot a little bit and see if you can come back with the right foot all the way to meet the floor and open up to the top of the room, to the ceiling. We're opening up our chest. Right arm comes to extend to the front of the room, pushing strongly into that left hand into the mat. And this is wild thing. Pushing just open. Slowly come back to the floor. Find the right arm next to the left. And the right foot next to the left. Back into downward facing dog. Let's do the other side. Left leg up towards the ceiling. Open up that knee. Open up that hip. Bend the left knee. Open it towards the ceiling. Start to pivot that right leg so it's a more comfortable position for you. Perhaps the left hand starts to shift off the floor. Right foot starts to find its grounding behind the right leg. And really open up the chest to face the ceiling. Left arm stretches towards the front of the room. Right arm is strongly pushing into the mat. Look back to the mat and slowly swivel yourself back into downward facing dog. Lower your knees. Come back into child's pose. You have worked quite hard the last 20 or so minutes, bringing your spine into quite a lot of extension, a lot of opening for the front of the body, which can feel intense if it's not something you're used to. So just thank yourself for showing up and for doing the hard work. You start to cool down here. Slowly press into your arms. Start to lift your torso off of your thighs. And swing your feet to the front. Extending them, sitting down on your bum and extending the feet in front of you. We'll come into boat pose, which we also did at the beginning of this class. Just to say, in a way, bye to our core. Thanks for everything that you've done. Place your feet on the ground. Start to lean back with your torso a little bit. Engage the abdomen. Gently, when you're ready, lift the feet off the ground, keeping the knees bent. And extend the arms forward. Remember to breathe here. The hard work is done. Great work. Lower your feet to the ground and extend them in front of you. We're going to do a counter pose here, folding forward over our legs. What I sometimes like to do is really pull my bum cheeks out from underneath me in this pose. Whenever you're ready, just reach in front of you and just let your body come back into that sometimes really sweet flexion. After extending our spine and opening our heart for the whole class, this should feel really, really sweet. The goal here is not how far you can get into the pose. There's no need to push for that. Just feel that other extreme, that total rounding of the back of the body, and that stretch. How nice it feels after all that work that we've done. Slowly begin to walk your hands back up and stack your shoulders on top of your hips. We're going to come to lie on the mat. One of my favorite poses, Shavasana. Get yourself comfortable here. Feet can flail out to the outer corners of the mat. Arms are next to your body or in the outs. Whatever feels comfortable. Palms facing the ceiling. Just bring your attention here to the spine, the front of your chest. And just notice if it feels any different from when we first started the class. allow your body here to completely relax. Feel how the ground is supporting. Slowly begin to invite movement into your toes and fingers. Treating your body as if it's just waking up from a deep sleep, a deep rest. Being gentle with your movements, perhaps circling your ankles and your wrists. When you're ready, place your feet on the mat. Choose a side and roll over, coming to rest here for just a second. Use the top hand, whichever one it is, to push yourself back up and come into a seat. I wanted to thank you for joining me for today's yoga class. I really enjoyed guiding you through this. And I hope you also found some really nice opening and movement through the front of your chest. And a little bit of different positioning than what your body's used to in the everyday. You might find that tomorrow your back is feeling a little bit sore from all the contracting and pulling down of the shoulder blades, and that is completely normal. It will go away quite soon. It's important that we keep practicing this healthy movement of the spine, both sides, the extension and the flexion. It's really when we're stuck in one pose for extended periods of time that our body does not like that. So please, if you ever find any time throughout your day, throughout the rest of this week, throughout the rest of this month, just take a couple of those poses, perhaps an even simple cat and cow moving through the flexion and extension of the spine. Or maybe you have some more time, the luxury of time, and you feel like coming back to this class and practicing those movements again. You will find that your body will really thank you. Thank you again for joining me for today's yoga class, and I hope to see you next time.